I regard the ACOG as the perfect optic for the AR-15. So it's perfect for close range and medium to range shooting. And it's very compact, very lightweight, handles well, and with its tritium lit reticle, it's easy to do the ambidextral gunfighter thing and have your both left and right eye quickly pick up the reticle. It's also perfect for both eyes open Bindon aiming concept. Video on Bindon aiming concept, link down description. Now I would love to have an ACOG on my AR and on my RDB. Ideally, for the RDB, I'd want a TA50 with a T60 mount to get the perfect height above the pick rail for ideal sight alignment and a good cheek weld. Well, it happened to be that I have a Vortex Viper 1:6 PST LPVO scope. Very nice scope. It is a bit bulky and kind of heavy, but I found it, and I tried it on my RDB, and I found that weight up top on the RDB was just a little too much and was kind of wrecking what makes the RDB so special for the ambidextral gunfighter. Speaking for the ambidextral gunfighter, I also noticed that the mass was for snap shooting from behind cover was just a little, I could definitely tell the difference when running the LPVO Vortex on this rifle compared to, say, the ACOG or a red dot. So I went to set about to optimize the gear that I have at hand. Now, the ACOG to me is perfect, makes the AR like it's 100% perfect match for the AR-15. But I do like the Viper 1:6, which is a very nice LPVO, and so I decided to put for Vortex 1:6 on my AR and move the ACOG off of my AR to my RDB. The way I figure the Vortex, very good solid optic. It's manufactured in Philippines, so it's a good quality optic lens and all that, and not contributing to the gain of function for Chinese weaponry. So I think this optic on the AR is like maybe 92% as good as the ACOG on the AR, in my opinion, for me. And then again on the RDB, the TA31 ACOG is, while I would rather have the TA50 with the TA60 mount to get it down just perfectly for the perfect eye alignment, this is again probably 92% good enough that I like it on the RDB. And between the two, I find that this is a pretty good allocation of my resources. That's my thinking at this point anyway. Now, one thing is that this is a 1:6, so it has a maximum of 6 power, whereas the ACOG is 4 power. So this would give me, potentially a little bit more range, which you look at these two rifles and you think, hey, that's pretty good. This rifle is quite a bit longer, and this is a shorter rifle. Therefore, this must have a longer barrel and be perfect for long-range shooting. Well, this is actually a 16-inch barrel, whereas the RDB is a 20-inch barrel. So this barrel is actually 4 inches longer than this AR barrel, but it's in a shorter overall package. And that's just one of many advantages of the bullpup rifle. Now, nonetheless, I do find that this rifle is really good. I've shot it at Project Appleseed known distance events and shot really well with it using the ACOG, and that was just a 4 power scope. And at those known distance events, our maximum range is out to 400 yards. This is a BCM RECCE, R-E-C-C-E, which is several years old, and it looks great still. I've got a lot of use of it. Still got the old style key mod foregrip, but I'm fine with that. Really good quality. I really like the rifle. A nice crisp trigger, a little bit heavier, definitely heavier than the RDB trigger. RDB has an amazing trigger, actually. This has been made as ambidextrous as you can make an AR. It has an ambidextrous charging handle, an ambidextrous selector safety switch, and I do have kind of this, I think it's Arms Unlimited. It fits onto the magazine release, which kind of gives you that an ambidextrous magazine release. It's not perfectly mirrored in that the feel is not identical from one side to the other, but at least it's there and working. In fact, I told the story in a previous video where I was at that particular Project Appleseed known event, and I was switching, shooting. I'd shoot sometimes right-handed, the host stage course of fire right-handed, and then I would shoot it left-handed. And the first time I got down behind this rifle to shoot left-handed, and I got to the stage where you actually have to do magazine changes, and it's you have a limited amount of time. I think it was 55 seconds for the seated position, and I did my 2 shots, and I went to do my magazine change, and I pushed, and nothing happened. And I just pushed again, and harder and harder, and still nothing. And then I was like, kind of come out of the zone and realized, oh yeah, I'm shooting left-handed. There is no magazine release on this side, so I had to reach over and grab and pull the magazine out off using my right hand, pull it out, and then put the fresh magazine in. So that kind of drives home the point when I talk about for being an ambidextral gunfighter is that once you become fully ambidextrous, you don't even think, I'm shooting right-handed here, I'm shooting left-handed here. It's just seamless. You're just automatically shooting however you need to shoot for optimal use of cover. And each eye your eyes, you have no dominant eye, at least no eye that can be detected as dominant using simple techniques. So no matter which eye see the sights in front of whichever eye, that eye picks it up. But anyway, so perfectly mirrored is important, and it's going to be almost impossible to do that on these stoner design rifles. It requires significant change both to the magazine, the mag release system, then also the bolt release, because there is no mirroring of the bolt release. It's in fact almost pretty much impossible because it's almost across from the ejection port. Still a great rifle. This is, I think, in my opinion, near the pinnacle for AR rifles, the BCM. However, the KelTec RDB, as I've detailed in my reviews on this rifle, rather detailed reviews, makes my AR feel like a relic. And that's especially from the ambidextral gunfighter perspective. The balance of the rifle, where you can actually hold this thing one-handed, makes it easy to do these transitions from left to right and right to left. And at all points during the transition, the muzzle's up, and I can even still fire at this point once I've got this hand back here, transition over, muzzle still down range at the target, at the threat, can fire across that whole transition, and then come back and got my support hand back out there. So this balance allows you to do that. Now something else, speaking of transitions, is running this MagPul single and 2-point sling. In fact, I've got a review. I'll include a link down in the description on that. But did add a look at what I call a traveler. It's like a sailboat traveler for the boom on a sailboat that allows us to move from one side to the other. So I have no interference when doing these transitions from my sling, single point sling. Now compare that to the AR, where my pistol grip's right back here. It's a really challenge. I mean, really, if you pull it back into your shoulder good, you can maybe hold it one-handed for a little bit, but transitions are just a little bit a little bit more awkward. It's not as clean, and most people end up doing, because it's just of that weight, muzzle up over to the other side of cover and then muzzle down. So its transitions are like this. And I think for gunfighting, it's better to keep your muzzle up as you make that transition over. But if you're hugged up tight close to cover, because maybe you're getting pinched in from two different angles, you're fighting two opponents, you might not have room to have that muzzle down. It may, pretending that this is our cover here, I can't, you know, maybe I want to get close here and shoot out the side and then come up and over on this side. So the length is also a little bit of a hassle for maneuvering behind cover. The other thing is, and we experimented with this a bunch the other day, is when you're shooting left-handed, and okay, it comes time for a magazine change, then you have to reach over with your support hand, and you've got to basically strip the magazine, then go for your other magazine. Whereas if you're shooting right-handed, you can actually, you know, drop that magazine while you're reaching for a fresh one. Whereas the RDB, with its mag release right here, right behind my hand, I can reach for another magazine while this one's dropping to the ground, and then reach back and grab a fresh one. And it works the same left or right-handed. So my brain basically transfers that knowledge from left to right-handed without me having to, you know, the brain is easily mirror skill from one side to the other. So once it figures out you're needing to do things left and right-handed, it quickly translates those skills of like trigger control, technique from one hand to the other. In short, if I had to pick one rifle to go out the door for a gunfight, because of its ease of gunfighting and handling for optimal use of cover, making optimal use of cover in a gunfight, I would choose the RDB over the AR. Like I said, for those reasons, from the Ambidextral Gunfighter perspective, it makes the AR feel like a relic. However, if I were going out the door and I'm bugging out and I'm going into the world of Mad Max, and where this is a rifle I'm going to have to survive with for the rest of my life, however long or short that might be. In that case, I think I'd probably choose the AR. And probably the main reason would be parts. I mean, practically, you can find parts for these at the local convenience stores. So parts are ubiquitous for the AR, and AR rifles are everywhere. In that Mad Max world, this is probably the rifle I would choose. But if I could lay in a supply of extra parts, and I've got quite a few extra firing pins for this, maybe a few other parts as well, some of the trigger control mechanism, or maybe just a few spare rifles if you've got that kind of money. Okay, then I might choose the RDB for my end of the world rifle. But again, I mean, if you're bugging out and backpacking into the woods of Mad Max or whatever, maybe you can't carry all those spares, but firing pins, you could certainly carry those. And that's the only thing I've broken on this rifle, is one firing pin. Did have the nut on the end of the barrel, what's that called? Where the locking lugs connect in. That came loose once on this. I do have a video on that, link down in the description. Whereas my AR, I've not had any problems with this at all. And I've probably got about the same number of rounds through these two rifles. So anyway, you know, we did have to come out, and that's when I'm out here at the range over the past couple days to do a little bit of limited shooting, doing zeroing of these optics. Now that I've switched them around, zeroed them at 25 yards, and remember with the ACOG, when I zero at 25 yards, I use the 300 yard part of the triangle, use that 300 part of it, the bottom of the triangle, to zero at 25 yards. That would put it again on at about 300 yards, and then the tip of that triangle on the Trijicon ACOG would be like a hold under for 100 yards. The LPVO, I also zeroed it at 25 yards, but I zeroed it at the center of the crosshairs. I do wish it had a tick up that was about 4 or 5 minutes of angle above the center of the crosshairs, so for my hold under when shooting at 100 to say 150 yards would be about right. So I do like the fact that these have resettable turrets for the optic. So once I get it fully zeroed, I'll reset the turret. So the turret itself is like, the numbers on it are zeroed. And then that way, if I want to dial in, you know, windage or elevation, I can just click that in and make the shot, and then when I'm done with that day's wind conditions or the range that I'm shooting, I can bring it back to its original setting for zeroed at 25 and 300 yards. Now, something I've kind of inherited, or not inherited, it was a hand-me-down, was I've acquired a couple of Enforce weapon lights, and I've got a future video coming up where my kids have upgraded to some another, you'll see in the future, a better weapon light. I've not really been a huge thing on weapon lights, but I thought, hey, you know, a free weapon light, okay, I'll take it. And the things I do like about this weapon light is, one, it has a kind of like a safety here, a little swing arm that blocks accidentally hitting it, because if you're, you know, doing tactical stuff at night, you don't want to accidentally hit your light and turn your light on and give away your position. Now, the other thing I like is that this light has a switch to switch from where it's the button either works. It's click on and click off, and then you can also go through a strobe. Well, switching this back, and it switches it to just a momentary switch. And I like a momentary switch because, in my view, if you're going to use a weapon at night, a weapon light at night or low light conditions, you want to only, you know, flash that light like a firefly briefly, and then the light, you want to go off, and you move off the X. Now, you can move off the X a lot or move off just a little, but, you know, just hitting that light just like a firefly, just briefly. So now the other thing, of course, for me is that this hull must operate ambidextrously. And so it has to operate the same left or right. Now, since most people mount their weapon lights like on the side of the rifle, where you operate it with maybe your support hand thumb, and a lot of them I know are using the C grip extended way out here, so they're running their light out farther, and so they run the switch under their thumb right there. That leaves you switching to left-handed. There is no switch to operate it, so you have to operate it differently when shooting left-handed. And so I want mine to be perfectly mirrored, perfectly ambidextrous. Now, a way maybe some of these light manufacturers could maybe resolve that is maybe put that light there, mount that light on the side, and then run dual switches, a switch on each side that would be perfectly mirrored. It'd be one way around that. Now, the way I've done it on my AR here is I've moved the light here right under my optic, and so I can operate it identically, left or right. So it seems like a nice light, a good enough light. I mean, I don't expect I ever use it. To me, it's mostly just on there mostly just for the cool factor. Now on the AR, you're thinking, wow, that's right there under his optic. Now I do see it when I can barely see it, just a little when I'm on 1 power. But once I switch to 6 power or a higher power, it's gone. I'm well past it. Now that is one thing, when it come time to mount this Vortex, I did use the Vortex cantilever mount on here. And I had to get this thing far enough forward because the eye relief is pretty sensitive on this. You don't, there's not a huge eye box, it's pretty limited. And to get for a good turkey neck cheek weld for those accurate shots when running the high magnification, I needed this thing pretty far forward. So I'm actually a little bit onto the rail or the handguard. And you see how far my objective is from like my charging handle. So when I'm shooting with that turkey neck cheek weld, I'm getting right up here to where my nose is right on that charging handle. Now, of course, not for other operations, you know, being all tactical. At 1 power, where you're maybe doing quick, you know, room clearing drills or whatever, it's less sensitive on that eye box, so I can actually relax back a bit on the optic and not have to do that turkey neck cheek weld to get a clear view through it. In fact, I can also even shorten up the stock and still have a good view through the optic. It's more relaxed with the low power on this. So you know, that actually works. Seemed like a pretty decent setup. Pretty pleased with the Viper, or the Vortex Viper 1-6 PST. This is a Gen 2 one. Something I really like about the Vortex Mount is how slim and trim and svelte it is, I guess you'd say. There's no big giant protruding thumb nuts off the side of it. Nothing to interfere, snag on any webbing or anything. Unlike like the ACOG has those big giant thumb nuts, which especially on bullpups interfere with like the charging handles, especially for ambidextrous operation. And then my version here, which I've castrated, I cut off those big thumb nuts and put on small, if I remember right, they're 5mm flange nuts. But man, I'm telling you, do my How to Become an Ambidextral Gunfighter course. It's a video course. I have a link down in the description. It only takes about 2 weeks. It's only just you know, take you maybe 20 minutes a day over a 2-week period, and then you'll be able to be fully ambidextrous, and your eyes will, and I mean, it's, you know, you'll be pretty proficient at it after 2 weeks, and it'll grow and develop very fast. Now, if you really want to develop that skill fast, go play tournament paintball or X-ball paintball. And I'm not talking about paintball out in the woods. I'm talking about going to what you might call it an airball field, where they have the bunkers. It looks like almost like a soccer field with inflatable bunkers on it, perfectly mirrored on the field, and 2 teams go at it. In that crucible of this kind of paintball, you will learn quickly to make optimal use of cover, and you're going to do that by being ambidextrous. If you are not ambidextrous in tournament paintball, you will be making trips to the dead box in short order. And I'm pretty sure a certain amount of that applies to real world gunfights. So take the time to become ambidextrous. It's like a force multiplier. And like I said, you become that, and now this RDB becomes just an amazing tool. Now the Desert Tech MDR, I like the 308 version of that a lot. It had some features that I like a little bit better, but man, this RDB is just lighter, a little bit less weight up top, so it's less tippy, and that's important in case you need to run and then dive into cover. And this being less tippy, it won't want to roll over, and you also want more weight towards the rear, so it doesn't want to, when you hit the ground, want to dig the muzzle in. And that's, you think, well, you don't want to dive for cover with your gun. Well, in a gunfight, you might. If somebody's shooting at you, it's pretty amazing what you'll do to not get shot. And I know that just from paintball, where getting hit from a paintball, you know, it hurts, but mainly it's like, you want to win, and so you really push the limits, and so we dive into cover so we don't get shot. And if you're willing to dive into covers to not lose a game of paintball, I'm thinking maybe you dive into cover to not die for real. So I am just amazed at the RDB. Now, would I like to see this design improved and, you know, made more reliable, maybe some better materials in certain spots? Absolutely. But as I discussed in one of my videos, how and why the U.S. Army should try the RDB for their next generation squad weapon. The thing is, they should try the rifle in opposition force, using maybe the laser systems that they have, or those paint projectiles, you know, the simunitions, and do it with the, you know, do op-force testing with the RDB, with a team that's trained to be ambidextrous, and then compare that, the effectiveness of that team, to a non-ambi team that's using, you know, well, the M4. Another thing I want to mention is, you know, last night we were practicing with the ARs with my sons and his friends, and we're looking at doing magazine changes when shooting left-handed, and, you know, the problems that entail. Now, you know, that kind of hints that maybe I think mag changers the be-all, end-all. They are not. If I had to choose between someone who was kind of sloppy with their magazine changes, but was really good at being ambidextrous, making optimal use of cover, not exposing themselves to the opposition, and then also anticipating the movement of the opposition. Because targets, you know, when you're doing the run and gun stuff and you're shooting targets down range, those targets aren't going to move. Well, there's one thing you'll find is if you shoot at people tend to move. They don't just stay where they've been. They tend to want to either move so they don't get shot by you, or move into a position where they can shoot you. So you've got to anticipate where the opposition is moving, and that's, to me, is way more important than going really fast and, you know, that stopwatch obsession. So, I mean, the stopwatch obsession is good for learning, you know, the manual of arms stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'd, like I said, rather have someone who's sloppy with mag changes, but has that, I don't know if it's an instinct, and I think maybe you can pick some of that up from paintball, maybe airsoft, but that instinct to anticipate where the opposition's moving and then making optimal use of cover by being ambidextrous. Hope you enjoyed the video. This is Mark Laughlin speaking for the Ambidextral Gunfighter. Please like, share, and subscribe.